Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Allan Kardec Spiritist Group of New Zealand meeting. Welcome everyone who is here physically, also those who are here spiritually, and also those who are here virtually watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, and also on Instagram. Welcome to another public meeting. As tonight is the last Wednesday of the month, we're having a lecture that was very carefully and very lovingly prepared by Carol tonight, Faith or Denial. But we have a few news that are about our activities for this group. And firstly, we are coming back together for our child and youth spiritist studies happening on Sunday. So this Sunday, 31st, is going to be the first time that we have. If you like to bring your kids, or if you know someone that would like to bring their kids, welcome to bring them along. We also require you to fill in a form. So we have forms here. This first meeting will just be like a general gathering, catch up, because we haven't had these activities for a long time because of COVID. But now we're finally getting back to that. And it happens every Sunday in Parnell Community Center, 545 Parnell Road in Auckland. And also to remind everyone that we are also offering our fraternal assistance. It's available for those who like to meet with one of our team to have a chat, to maybe find out how Spiritism or this group can assist you in your challenges, in your troubles. Just get in touch with us, send us an email, and book a time. Normally happens on Wednesdays before this public meeting. So just give us a bit of time so we can prepare that for you as well. And just looking in advance for next month's lecture, we are very happy to be hosting a friend of ours, José Araújo. He is a spiritist that works in the spiritist group of Irmã Luisa in Blumenau. He will be working in New Zealand, so he gave a bit of his time to offer a couple of lectures. For those who don't speak Portuguese, I'm sorry, I just made the poster in Portuguese, but just pretty much saying that Allan Kardec presents international lectures in August and September. So next month will be last Wednesday of next month, we're going to have one lecture, As Sedes da Alma, the Seeds of the Soul. And in the following week, because it's going to be here for 2 weeks, we're going to have an extra lecture. Normally we have one lecture per month, so we're going to have swap. Instead of the last Wednesday, going to be on the first Wednesday, another lecture, transmigration between worlds in our mismatchings or mistimings. How to translate desencontros in English, but mismatching, mistimings. It's going to be on the 7th of September. Both lectures will be here in Parnell Community Center. Zaramuju, he's a holistic therapist, he's a writer, he's a public speaker, he's a spiritist, he's a researcher, and he'll be offering us these 2 lectures, but also he will be doing a workshop as well on Saturday and Sunday. So if you like more information, watch out for this space. All this information is going to be available in our Facebook, in our website, and also on our Instagram. So it's going to be a great opportunity. The borders are open. Now we're able to bring and host more international speakers and guests to give us an injection of energy and enthusiasm to keep moving in our activities of spiritism here in New Zealand. And I think that's all we have for news for this meeting. And now we go to our inspirational reading. We have been reading Living Spring by Emmanuel, written by Chico Xavier. And this is number 25, Concerning Christ's Gifts. But grace has been given to each one of us according to the measure of the gift of Christ. That's in Paul, Epiphras, Ephesians, in Portuguese, Ephesians, in English, chapter 4, item 7. Over these 20 centuries of Christianity, the human soul has been a consciousness enlightened by reason amidst a battle for acquiring illuminative personal qualities. The battlefield is to be found within our inner life, animality versus spirituality. Millennia of deep set darkness against the nascent light, and human beings between the alternatives of life and death, being reborn in the physical body and returning to the spiritual life, little by little shape the sublime inner qualities that are essential for the spiritual ascension, and which, in fact, constitute the progressive virtues of Christ in each one of us. That is why divine grace occupies human existence or grows within it, insofar as the incipient, small, regular, or great gifts of Jesus are expressed in it. Wherever you may be, or whoever you may be, seek to develop Christian qualities within you with the same watchful attention that is given to cultivating precious plants in the home. As for the earth, we are all susceptible to endanger good or evil. Let us offer the vessel of our hearts to the divine cultivator, bearing in mind that if the conscious soil of our spirits accepts his seeds, then each crumb of our goodwill will most certainly become a miraculous channel for the exteriorization of the good with the ongoing multiplication of the gifts of the Lord all around us. Observe your good side and remember you can increase it infinitely. Do not try to destroy millennia of darkness all at once. Strive for self-improvement each and every day. Preserve in learning from the Master of love and selflessness. Let us not forget that divine grace will fill our personal space according to our real growth in the gifts of Christ. So with that beautiful message in mind, we ask everyone to sit in a comfortable position and bow your head and close your eyes if you like to, trying to connect to this moment, this very precious moment where we take some time aside from our very busy lives to focus in our spiritual reality through the eyes and through the lights of Spiritism, trying to forget our troubles, our challenges, leave them behind the door, and just focusing in this moment where we come together with brothers and sisters in Christ, both incarnated, also disincarnated, and online, watching us virtually. And all together we pray, first and foremost, thanking God for the gift, the blessing of life, of this reincarnation, with all its beauty, with all its gifts, but also with all its challenges, shaping us, making us who we are and who we intend to be. We also acknowledge and thank the presence of Jesus Christ, our bigger brother, the role model of mankind in this planet Earth. We also thank for the presence of all the spirits, the good spirits, the benefactors sent by Him to be with us, to watch over us, to inspire us and protect us during this meeting. We welcome everyone here, asking everyone to open your hearts, open your minds, try to cultivate good thoughts and good feelings so everyone can enjoy and benefit from the lessons that are coming through tonight through our sister Carol. And let us all be mindful and be open to the blessings to be received, asking the superior spirits to also bless and to support Carol during the presentation. Thank you so much. So good. So we ask Carol to come to the stage, which is just in front of the screen.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So we were talking just before we turned on the screen, saying that if you are watching on Instagram, you won't be able to see me.
Just poke your head for a little bit so you
Yeah,
can see.
so
Hello.
it's like really bright in there. So only if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you probably be able to see me. Or of course, if you come and watch us here live.
Yes.
So for next month, that we have a lecture um, from someone that is coming from Brazil, and in September the same. Maybe start making plans to come over and watch it live if you are in Auckland or if you're in New Zealand to come and watch it live. We are always here when we are facility study group on Wednesdays. We are here in person, and I know with the pandemic we all got used to watching from home, but makes a lot of difference being here together, meeting other people, and we're all doing our best to wear masks and keep social distancing. So if you're worried, also have a chat to one of us on Facebook or reach out through Instagram that we can talk to. I know that the amount of cases is growing again, and lots of people are concerned. Um, but yeah, it makes a lot of difference being here in person. So thank you everyone that came. And tonight, so it took me, it always takes me a while to decide what I'm going to talk about in the lecture. And then tonight, this theme came, the idea came from a podcast that I was listening to that was actually talking about hope. So going through this phase that we're still going through, right? We're just talking about COVID now and talking about the pandemic, and when he was talking about how now the borders are open again and people are allowed to fly back in New Zealand once more, and how foreign this feels, talking about traveling, talking about people visiting once more, um, how how hard it was passing through, especially the last couple of years, um, how hard it was for lots of us to keep our faith alive, to keep hope. So the podcast I was listening to was, I don't know if a few of you will know, is a Brazilian podcast. It's called News. So they talk, it's just a round table, and usually they choose a theme and they discuss, and on that episode is called um, it talks about hope. So it talks about exactly the same. So having hope is being in denial. So is it possible in a world full of suffering? Is it naive to have faith? So is it naive of us to have faith when all of this is going on, when we have so much suffering, so much injustice, so many issues with the climate, so many issues. We were just talking about global warming just before we started. We were talking about the heat and how weird the weather has been behaving in the last few years. Um, Among so much injustice, so much sadness, so much poverty. We are all in a world that feels like we are sharing poverty and concentrating richness. It feels like it's enough. It feels like we had enough. It feels like our bucket sometimes it feels like our bucket's full, and that we don't have space for tragedy anymore. That we don't have space for sadness anymore. That has been a year with record cases of mental health issues that we all had at least a few minutes on the course of the last couple of years that we felt like we had enough, that we couldn't wait for this wave of sadness, of desperation to pass. So with everything that's going on and the way the world is going, is that naive from us to actually have faith, to actually believe in something else, to actually believe that there is more to what's going on? So first and foremost, ignoring the facts won't change them, right? So the solution to keep our faith alive is definitely not ignoring the news. So it's probably an easy way out. We are about to have elections in Brazil again. So I'm sure lots of people can relate with when we have the testimony of people that in the past election blocked half of the relatives on Facebook, deleted people from WhatsApp, got out of conversations as much as possible, so not to start a fight, or stop reading the comments and reading the comment section on the news, right? That's a big trend. So ignoring the facts won't change them, but like pressing the wrong one. But obsessing on them won't change things either. So how healthy it is, how much information is too much information. So the more we research, the more we read, the more we'll feel like we have to keep reading because we're never going to be fully informed. We're never going to know everything. We're never going to know everything that's going on in the world, right? So how much information is too much? How much diving and digging is too much? This measure is different for each person, right? For some people, knowing the least amount just to keep it informed, it's what keeps them healthy. For some people, they can read through the whole section, the whole section of the day in the news. They can keep listening on the radio. They can watch the news on the TV and keep talking about it with people, and they're still fine. So how much can our mental health endure? So this is a limit that we need to know about ourselves. So how much is too much? And what type of news are we also reading, right? Where are our sources? What type of discussion is that bringing? Are we reading because the details make us curious, or actually that is actually adding something to our day, is actually adding information to that we will need to carry on life? So lots of those news that, especially the breaking news, right, that come on every single page, on every single newspaper or online, the headlines, lots of them are very sensationalist. So they are going to talk about in gore details about an incident that maybe we don't need to know much more than a small percentage of it to know that we need to pray for those people, that we need to stop on the course of our day to send our thoughts towards something, or even if it is a big injustice, that we need to know that so we can choose on who are we going to vote or what are we going to ask for from the current government to be different because something happened. So how much information is too much? How much do we need to be informed, but also not to dive in and get obsessed with something? So obsessing about it, talking about it all the time, it won't change things either. It won't make it different either. So this is Eddie Jaco. So he just completed 100 years this year, and he's a survivor from the Holocaust. So one thing, he wrote a book called The Happiest Man on Earth. And on the book, he says, at one point I'm going to get it right for this important one, that hate is the beginning of a disease like cancer. It may kill your enemy, but it will destroy you in the process too. So on the book, he talks about his experience in the Holocaust and how he survived, and why he called himself the happiest man on earth. So he talks about the experience of other people that also survived, survived that. And obviously, it was a horrible period of all of their lives, and the memories that they have are very harsh. And he talks about it on the book, talks about some of the memories and the things he had to endure. But one thing that they all have in common is that they all believe that they survived because they have something to live for, and because they had hope that that will actually be over, that it would pass, and that they would be able to live their lives again, even if they were not together with the people that they loved. They might have gotten lost, they might have passed, that there was something that was worth living for, and that was not hate. That was not the desire to massacre their enemy. It was only hope. So, in other words, he uses hope quite a bit more than faith. But talking about something more profound, right? The belief on something that you can't quite explain, but that lives inside of you. And it's very, in his case, very strong that he was going to pass, and that cultivating that faith inside of him, that loving, not loving the enemy, not loving the situation, but believing that there is something more than the problem that he was going through, than the space of time that he was living in, made him survive and not just pass through, but actually come out of it in a very unhealthy situation, physically speaking, but mentally speaking, very strong. So how can we understand someone that had to hiding for over 10 years and being in sadness for a huge period of time to actually pass a message that is about love? So he talks about his physical body. He was weighing less than 30 kg when he was able to leave the hiding space that he was. But he had mental clarity like he never had before, because he was certain that his faith had a foundation, that there was a reason why he had to pass through all of that. So this is an immense amount of faith, is an immense certainty that very few of us have. So this thing that all those people that went through, and there is research with people that have been through many difficult situations, from survivors of the Holocaust to through people that lost children, which is a very traumatic and sad experience, people that have been through immense sadness on this incarnation. And one thing that they have in common is that they chose love. They chose to believe in something other than themselves, in something other than what we can see. They chose to believe and carry on with their lives, believing that there is something bigger, that all of us are always searching, right? In one way or another. This is what we're all searching for, love. So this little bit is from the Gospel, chapter 19, uh, that talks that calm during a battle is always a sign of trust and strength. Violence, on the other hand, shows weakness and doubt. So when we're talking again about all those arguments that we may or may have not had with someone before on something that we firmly believe, and the other person probably firmly believe too, we can notice that either us or the other person starts losing their patience when they are really certain of what they are talking about, right? The person starts raising, or we start raising our voices, we start getting impatient, we start probably interrupting the conversation or cutting it, and faith is not like that. That's not how it feels, right? Calm during a battle is always a sign of trust and strength. So when we trust something, when we truly believe in what we're talking about or what we are going through, becomes easier. The sense of calmness spreads through our body and our minds when we actually believe that that is correct. So lots of times when we're having that argument, that conversation, if we're lucky, we are very certain of what we're talking about, and we realize that there's no point in arguing, that there's no point in raising our voices, that convincing the other person it's not really that important, that that argument is pointless because the other person is so certain that are we actually going to make a difference? Is that conversation actually productive? So this is how the chapter is about faith. So this is how faith feels like, right? So having faith is not about forgetting the pain, but it's about embracing it. So to answer the first question on the second slide, so are we being naive, believing that are we in denial, having faith, face, facing all the sadness in the world, all the problems that we can spend hours and hours discussing, and it's never going to end? Are we being naive when we believe that there is there is more than what we're going through? When having hope is being naive. Um, so this slide says that it's not about forgetting. So it's not about ignoring. It's not that we are in denial, pretending that that sadness, that poverty, that injustice doesn't exist. We know all of that. So you don't have to be misinformed. You don't have to be ignoring the facts to have faith, to have hope, to believe in something bigger. So it's not about forgetting. So many people would believe that people that still have hope that things will change, that things will be different, that those people are either misinformed or they're crazy, right? That if we still have faith and manage to carry on with our lives, having faith in something bigger, must be that there's something wrong. But the truth is that we don't need to forget about pain, we don't need to ignore it when we know that it's going to keep happening, and when we know that there is a reason for it. So keeping a memory alive, first of all, will help us not to repeat an error. But the past can be changed. So obsessing about it won't change it. The past happened for a reason. If we believe that, it's easier to understand why things happened, even if we don't know exactly why it happened. The certainty that there was a reason for it, that we want to get it out straight away, believing that we will understand someday, makes a lot of difference, creates a lot of hope. And faith is building a present, knowing that it will be a future. Tomorrow is full of possibilities. So faith is believing that there will be a tomorrow, no matter what happens, it will be a tomorrow. So if you believe that reincarnation exists, that is a fact. If you believe in the laws of action and reaction, if you believe that we are going to collect what we planted, there is no reason to doubt that there is a bigger purpose to what we're living, to what we're doing. So even though we will have moments of sadness, of desperation, moments that our faith will fail, hopefully most of the time we remember that there is a reason for everything that's going on. So I use this little picture also because planting is, or working with our hands, planting seeds is also an act of faith, right? We are planting, but we don't know if we are going to harvest or what we are going to harvest. So you plant and you hope that if you do everything right, you're going to have flowers. And but how many times we plant a seed, certain that it's going to be something, and turns out when the seed grows, it's something completely different. So especially if we don't know them very well, right? So before, when we bought our house, a couple of years ago, almost a couple of years ago, we had this tree in the backyard that the owner of the house before us thought it was going to be a lemon tree and turned out to be a New Zealand native tree, but that was going to be huge. And he planted just between the corner of the fence, so it was going to grow and obviously reap the fence and everything that it was around. So when we bought the house, we could already tell what the tree was turning into. So my fiance's grandma, who is a farmer, came over to our house and said, "Oh my God, you need to get rid of the tree because it's going to grow so much that it's going to destroy the fence." So obviously, when they planted the tree, they hoped for something else. But when we bought the house and we saw that it was too big for where it was, we removed the tree and we planted in a park that is not very far from our house in Mount Wellington. So the tree will be much bigger than they hoped for, and hopefully will provide shadow for many more people than it would in our house. So the potential of it was even bigger than what they thought it would. So how many times in our life this happens? So having faith is understanding that the future doesn't belong to us, but that we have a huge amount of contribution for what is going to happen next. So I also chose another example of faith, another to highlight in here. That is, well, hopefully everybody knows the story about Moses crossing the Egyptian desert and opening the Red Sea. So without going too much into detail on how it actually happened, or we'll treat it as the story there it is, not so much about the facts and how, even though when I started researching, so that's the rabbit hole of the internet, right? When I started researching and trying to find the story written on the Gospel or a spiritist version of it, there were so many spiritist blogs talking about what actually happened, how did the sea actually open, and I started reading about how the wind contributed on that day, and I was like, I'm losing the focus of this. This is not why I'm researching. So the Israeli faced 400 years of slavery, and then Moses came, and obviously this is the story, the lead to the story is the plagues of the Egypt, and when Moses finally got them free and got them to follow him, hundreds of thousands of Hebrews followed Moses through the promised land. So it was a very long journey that lasted a huge amount of time, and there was hundreds of thousands of people together going towards this possibility of a much better future than what they were leaving behind. Right? And some people on the course of the journey questioned Moses. Some wanted to go back to Egypt. And so some people, even though they knew the place they were coming from was horrible, that they were being enslaved, they wanted to go back because the bad, so the devil that I know, right, is easier to deal with than the unknown. So lots of people wanted to go back, and even though they were going to be enslaved again, they prefer to just return to that reality than keep walking towards something that they were not sure what it was. And some people, and some wanted to carry on no matter what, because they knew, they were certain that where they were going was better than what they were leaving behind, right? And they carry on walking, and they arrived at the border of the Red Sea. And when they were arriving at the border of the Red Sea, the Egyptian army was chasing them, and they were going to reach them, and they arrived to the sea and thought, oh, there's no way out of it now. Either the army is going to reach us and take us back to Egypt, or we're going to drown. So what are we going to do? And Moses talked to God, and God said, tell the people to carry on walking. So this was a huge ask from God, right? just carry on walking, but into the water, like, what's going to happen? So in this order, the people started walking and then the sea opened, right? Not the other way around. It was not the sea was open and then people walked. That's not how it works. That's not how life goes. We need to walk. We need to carry on walking for the sea to be able to open, right? So this is faith. It's believing so much that it's going to happen that when God tells you, keep walking, you say, yes, sir, and you carry on because you trust. So what kept those people alive all this time? What kept those people alive, I want to say 40 years in the desert? Did I get it right? So what kept those people alive? So most studies that discuss this talk about surviving in group, right? And surviving in group not only because it's really hard to be anywhere that is such a big open space as a single person, but also because you don't have the opportunity of sharing. So sharing, in their case, obviously, sharing chores, sharing the food, sharing, but also sharing hope, sharing faith, that we believe so much that faith is only alive when it's shared, is only alive in charity, right? So faith without charity is dead. So what kept them alive was the sharing. They kept, and so sharing, which we can treat here as faith, faith that something better was coming, faith that they could walk through the sea, that it would open, that would and it wouldn't close, right? That they could carry on walking, that they wouldn't drown. And how did they keep their faith? So I made a more note to myself there. There's daily provisions. So if you read through the story, they also talk about how they couldn't store the food. So they would store the food and the food would, for the next day to make sure they had food and the food would get ruined. So they only had daily provisions. So that was also huge faith esque, right? That you would have to believe that tomorrow the food would be there. The daily provision of tomorrow doesn't come today. We need to believe that tomorrow there will be more food, and the day after will be food again, and that we're going to keep surviving with those daily provisions. But there's no way we can sort it out the future today, that we can store enough faith or enough good feelings today for the day of tomorrow, right? Or we can eat what we ate yesterday today. Doesn't work either. So you have to live one day at a time. And that's how they survive, right? Sharing, believing that what I can do is done in the present. And um, this story also reminds us that we are all crossing, that we are all crossing together. So this crossing that we're going through, this incarnation, we are all going through. There is no exception. All of us are incarnated here because we have to be, and all of us have different paths inside the same crossing, but all of us have the same goal. All of us are going towards the promised land, right? Which is evolving, which is arriving in a stage that we won't have to go through the incarnations anymore. Some of us slower than others, some of us stuck in the border of the Red Sea there, some of us walking through the water, but all of us sharing this moment, all of us having less or more amounts of faith that tomorrow will come one way or another. So there is no way we can talk about faith without talking about rationalized faith when we talk about or rational faith. When we talk about faith inside spiritism, that we need to talk about rational faith, right? So rational faith clarifies and strengthens. So the reason why it strengthens us, that the faith makes us stronger, it's because it clarifies. It's because it's explained. So when people have arguments about how much faith someone has, and why people have blind faith, why they believe in something that doesn't make sense. The arguments always pop up because of blind faith, right? When you tell someone that they need to trust because they need to, why would I trust? Why would I believe? Oh, because you have to. Because it's written somewhere. Because it is the way it is. Because someone said so. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. This is not a strong faith. It's never going to be a strong faith. Because if we don't understand it, how can we believe? So if we understand the process and why we are believing, if we understand what God is, if we understand why things happen, if we understand um, how things work, the more reasons we'll have to believe or not in it. And for some people, faith is feels very innate. It looks so innate, right? We sometimes we meet people in the course of our life that we tell like, my God, this person has so much faith. They are so calm all the time. They always trust that the best thing will happen. They never, they are never desperate. Go through so much hardship, and they are always so calm. And we think, and some people will think this person is so lucky, but they are already like that. I am very far from it. I can't go through problems being this calm. I just can't do it. It's not inside of me. So if it is not inside of us yet, it's because we haven't studied enough. We haven't internalized enough. We haven't comprehended it to be able to believe. And as we know that this is not our first incarnation, maybe that person already had enough incarnations, well, definitely had enough incarnations to get to the stage that they are today. So it's not that some people are born with that and some people are not. All of us are going through a process. And if we want to gain that faith, to arrive in the level of these people that we are now imagining or remembering, we need to work for it. Faith is not something in the same chapter in the gospel that talks about faith, says that, right? Faith is not given. It's not something that can be bought. It's not something that you can present someone with. Faith, rationalized faith needs to be cultivated. Needs to be. It is something that we need to search for. So rationalized faith is based in facts and in logic. So as we know that the Spiritism is based on is a philosophy, a religion, and a science. So what we believe is always going to be based in facts, right? So we also read in the Gospel, in the Spirit's book, Kardec says, or the Spirits say, that if there is any information that is different from what we're telling you here, believe in science. Always believe in science. So again, this moment, complicated moment that we're going through on Earth, with everything that's going on, arguments on that feels like we are going back, that people are not suddenly doubting science, suddenly doubting facts that seem very clear for most of us, that have been proven such a long time ago. And reading that on the Spiritist book is a huge hug in our souls, isn't it? Reading, saying, like, believe in science. Doesn't matter what is written here. If it is prove the contrary, if it's something different, has been proved by science, believe in science. So what we're doing here is studying enough to hopefully every day understand a little better, so we can believe, so we can have more faith, so we can believe in it more clearly, so we have the strength to carry on because we have a base, right? So this chapter also talks about building building a building, constructing a building on top of something that is shaky, right? This is when we construct our edification, our building, our life on top of something that is shaky, probably is going to crumble when a big wind, when a big storm comes. It's going to crumble. But if we build our lives on top of something that is unshakable, that is solid, which is faith, it probably will be able to endure all the storms. It will be able to endure all the winds, and When we talk about unshakable faith, it's also that it can face reasoning at all times, at any time. So unshakable faith means that we believe on something that makes sense to us, that can be then confronted by reasoning without fear, because it's the truth, right? So there is no reason um, to doubt it, because it's clearly true, and that's why it's unshakable, right? We are so certain that we follow unshakable. A characteristic of less evolved spirits, not believing in something bigger than ourselves. So a characteristic of lots of us when in pain or in despair is forgetting about faith, forgetting that the universe, God, a higher power, whatever we want to call, is actually taking care of it. That doesn't matter how much we want to doubt, things will take its course. That the best for us is to believe and let God take care of it, right? It will be much less suffering if we believe and remember that God only wants what is best for us. And that's what I was talking before. So exclusive and blind faith divides. So when we have blind faith, so when you believe on something and you don't have an explanation to why, you just believe because you feel you need to believe. That's the faith that divides us, right? Because the rationalized faith, the true faith, is contagious. It's something that you can feel the person has it from far away, and you feel the happiness, the joy in their lives. Because having faith is believing in a better tomorrow, is believing in a great future for all of us, right? So the person that has the true faith is not someone that is after arguments, is not someone that is grumpy and sad all the time, but someone that lives the true gratitude, that understands so much of what's going on being a glimpse on time, that lives life with a completely different outtake on it than majority of people that have blind faith, that believe that a certain amount of people will be saved because they believe in something and everybody else won't, that other people don't stand a chance. So for us who have rationalized faith, hopefully, we know that all of us will do the crossing, right? We'll cross the desert and we will arrive, no matter how slow, in the promised land. So faith is an inner strength. It's not that is not religion related. So when I was listening to the podcast, they were talking about hope. They were talking um, how much hope is important for us to be able to carry on living life, and how much is important as a society. If there is no hope, if there is no expectation that things will get better, there's no reason to do anything, right? Because there is already so much sadness around. If it is not going to get better, there's no point on carrying on. There's no point on starting any projects, because we won't be able to finish. We won't make a difference. So we live on hope, we live on faith every day and every minute of our lives. If we didn't believe that there was something to come, we wouldn't keep moving. Life wouldn't keep moving. The world wouldn't keep spinning. Um, and this inner strength is not religion related, because you don't have to have a religion to have faith, right? So when you go, Haroldo Dutra Dias used a really good example when he talks about why faith is not religion related. He says like, oh, so imagine today we're all gonna go on a trip. We're all gonna catch a plane. So we all had to catch a plane to come to New Zealand, right? So when you go inside the plane, you are surrendering. You are trusting your life on the hands of the pilot. Maybe you're a bit afraid. If you're a bit afraid of flying, you're going to be a bit afraid. But still, you went there and you sat. and you might have been nervous 13, 18 hours of flight from Brazil to here, but you still didn't. You still sat and trust that the pilot was going to do their job, that the plane was going to do what it was supposed to do, and that you would arrive safely. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten in the plane. Even afraid, you would have been like, "Oh, I don't trust it, I don't understand, I don't think it's gonna work, I'm staying in Brazil, I'm not going." So this is a demonstration of what faith is believing in something and surrendering, sitting there on your seat and letting it happen, trusting that everybody that is in there is going to do their job and things are going to happen. So this is the trust that most of the time we lack in God, right? We are here in this life doing what we have to do to try and be better people. But the trip is taking its course. Are we letting God be the pilot? Or are we trying to go and pilot the plane ourselves? If we're never trained to be pilots, are we going to do a better job? Probably not. So faith is surrendering to something, is believing that what is meant to happen will happen, and that the best will happen, the best for us will happen. That if we were talking about the plane again, if we don't arrive to the place that we were going, that we intend to go for some reason, that is going to be okay too. That if the tree is not a lemon tree, it's going to be fine too. We'll find a place for it. And how hard it is to keep faith. So again, going back to the crossing of the Egypt, if those people were hundreds of thousands of people, right, were all decided or managed to convince themselves that it was not going to work. If majority of people decided that they were going back, probably the minority would also follow, right? Because I'm not going to stay here in the desert alone. I'm just going to go back with them. It's going to be worse, yeah, but not worse than being here by myself. So I'm going to go back. So tell me the company you're keeping, and I'll tell you who you are. So the company you keep is who you are. So who are we cultivating friendships with? And this doesn't mean, again, that we're going to cut off from our lives everybody that has a different way of thinking than us. This is not charitable. Faith only leads through charity. How are we exercising our faith? So having people that disagree with us, it's not bad. This is also how we evolve, right? But how we treat them and how we allow them to forge our way of thinking is something really big. As I was writing this, I was thinking that before my current job, I had a very short amount of time working in an office that it was really nice. I learned a lot of things, and one of them was how big is the influence of the people that I spend 8 hours with every day in my life. That I started realizing that, and I didn't realize while it was happening, but once I changed jobs and I started working where I work now, with this incredible person that he was my boss. She was just a very positive person that believed that what we do has an impact on every single person's life that crosses our path at work, because I work with HR. And so she believed truly that we could make a difference to every single person, and that is our job to try. So having this person in my life had a huge impact, and I started thinking like, huh, funny, I used to believe that, and why I had such a hard time embarking on this train of thought with her again. And then I realized that the place I was working before, I started cursing much more on my daily life. I started being way more negative about things, and I couldn't tell why it was happening to me on the course of the 4 months that I was there. I didn't realize why it was happening, but once I left, I realized how much negativity I was packing in such a short amount of time, how much my way of thinking changed and I didn't realize. And then working in a new place, being surrounded by people that think differently, that have a way of thinking way more aligned to what I believe, was quite easy to go back in the train again. But how easy it was to follow the way before, and I didn't realize. So this is something to think about all the time in our life. How much the environment around us changes or molds our way of thinking, and how much impact that has on our daily decisions and on our faith. How much is that making you negative or a positive person? And this has nothing to do with optimism, right? Being optimistic is being happy because of something, and having faith is believing it no matter what. Besides everything, you are positive that things are going to work out. So this is faith. So nothing to do with being around optimistic people, but being surrounded by people that share with you their sadness, their happiness, and most of all, love, where is going to be what is going to be the seed to make that faith grow, right? Brené Brown, which is a writer, she has been studying vulnerability for many years now. And one of the things that she says is that we are losing our tolerance for vulnerability. So losing our tolerance for vulnerability has a huge impact on our daily lives. And this is as a society, right? Lose vulnerability is what is being open to every single sensation, to every single feeling, right? So we're gonna get some bad things coming our way, but there's no way we can shut down. So when we talk about numbness, you can't numb, so you can't block it out. Only good feelings, only bad feelings. If you block it out, things and experiences and people, you will block it also out of your life, positive things too. So when you take antidepressants, and we are now the adult society in history with the biggest amount of addictions. So that being in drugs, in shopping, in anything that we can discount our frustrations on. So when you block it out, when you take a pill for depression, and this is not saying that is wrong, because when you're sick, you do need to take medicine, right? So taking a pill for depression blocks it out, the negative feeling that you have inside of you. It helps with depression, but we will also stop you from being really happy. We'll stop you from experiencing that feeling of laughing until you fall off the chair, or your belly hurts, of incredible happiness that makes you smile the whole day. You won't have that feeling also. So it's what you need to go back in the path of recovery. But it will stop you. That's why you need to get out of the meds at some point, because you won't be able to experience any of the extremes, right? We talked about extremes before, so faith without vulnerability. So vulnerability is also assuming that we can be wrong, is assuming that we are all human. So without that, becomes extremism, right? So when we believe that, when we believe on something so much that we don't allow ourselves to look around it, that's when it becomes extremism. Um, it's much easier to live disappointed than to feel disappointed. So this is when we avoid being vulnerable and we say, oh, this is not going to work anyway, so I'm not going to even try. So it's easier to live disappointed than it is to try and not work, or believe that it's going to work and it doesn't, and you get disappointed. So it's easier not even try. And like we said before about numbness, so we need to allow ourselves to experience all feelings, to actually be surrounded by people at all times and embrace whatever happens to us and learn from it. And how do we embrace that? We practice gratitude, right? It's much easier to have faith. It's much easier to keep positive when we are grateful for what we have. So no matter what happens, if you are grateful for, it's much easier to carry on in a positive note, remembering that there are big portions of good things happening everywhere, every day, all the time, with us, in the world, across the universe. There is always a portion of good things happening. We just have to find them. And if we don't exercise that, it's just never going to happen. So faith is definitely alive because of charity, because we work on it, and it's only alive because people follow it through example. So if we live by it, there is a bigger chance that the person near us will believe too, even if it is less, or even if it is much more than what we do. If we support each other, the crossing becomes much easier. But if I'm sure you,
Yeah.
let's see. Let's see if I can turn it on from here. Oh, I did. There we go. Oh, it's on my computer.
सर आपके लिए उस पार कार का इंतजाम किया है इसने कुछ करो ना वहाँ जाके क्या उखाड़ूंगा जाने बूंदे आई जाने कैसा दर्द लाई सामने क्या है ये तेरे क्यों रुका है तू बता दे कौन तुझको पार देगा कौन होगा वो मसीहा जिसे तू ढूंढता है तू ही है तू वही तुझ में तेरा रास्ता है तुझ में तेरा है सहारा तू ही तुझको पार देगा तू ही है तेरा किनारा तुझ में तेरा रास्ता है तुझ में तेरा है सहारा तू ही तुझको पार लेगा तू ही है तेरा किनारा कैसे डूबता है तू ही है तू ही है तू ही है तेरा मसीहा
So, this is having faith, right? Not thinking that no one else is doing it, but being so certain that it's going to work, that it's contagious, that you pass it on to other people. And other people eventually will follow. It might take time, but if you believe that the tree can be removed, it's probably true, right? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Carol, for the great lecture. Does anybody have any questions or any comments? I think we only have one comment here. Of students saying boa noite, Carol. That was the beginning.
Boa noite, senhora. Comments? Did it pop up in our room?
Yeah, just saying thank you. Really inspiring lecture.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Does anyone want to make a comment?
I think one word that came to my mind a lot was indulgence. You're talking about faith and how we have to believe and just have that. And indulgence is always a big thing for all of us, right?
All right, so I think that's it. Once again, thank you, Carol, for lot of food for thought for all of us. And so tonight we'll continue our activities by doing our irradiation or vibration, and we do the collective spiritual treatment as well. There's only a few of us, and we already been blessed by this beautiful lecture, so thank you. And but of course, reminding everyone that at the end of it, we also have the magnetized water we can drink, and to make our way outside without making too much noise, keeping the environment nice and quiet, so the spiritual friends can help us here. So, like, a bit of music, and we can close our eyes and sit in a comfortable position, just taking the time to be grateful for this moment that we're all here, alive, healthy, in harmony with the environment that we find here, and also be grateful for the opportunity to be part of this next part of this activity, which is to give a little bit of ourselves in form of thoughts and prayers, fluids and vibrations. We know that we are being helped by the superior spirits that are here, assisting us in spreading all this goodness to whoever and wherever is needed. And we do have faith in the workers for Jesus and for God. And as a preparation for ourselves, we relax, being in touch with the music, in touch with the feeling of our breathing, slowing down, our mind feeling clearer, just listening to the voice, my voice, and the music. And truly believing that this act that we're doing right now, it's helping us in a planet of trials and atonement where many millions of people are suffering in different degrees, in different levels, different intensity, but most of us are suffering. So we start by praying and vibrating peace to a planet that has many wars, many tribulations between countries, between races and religions. We pray for the possibility and the certainty of peace in the future. We also pray for health in a world where we're living still amongst the pandemic and many other diseases that have been able to be treated because of the overflooding or over use of the hospitals. So we pray for the health of those who are going through treatment. It could be a physical disability or disease. It could be something psychological, a trauma, something spiritual. We also pray to the doctors and the nurses and the medical staff looking after our health as a prayer of gratitude for their work. We also pray for those who are suffering from loneliness. It could be someone in a rest home sometimes abandoned by their own families. We pray for those in the hospice, a lot of them in the last preparation for the passage between the two planes, from the material life and the spiritual life. We pray for the children in orphanages. We pray for the homeless, especially in these cold and wet months, living in the streets, exposed to the elements. We also pray for those who are suffering from addiction, maybe from illicit drugs, alcohol, smoking. Let us embrace them with the love of Jesus Christ. We now take a moment to pray for those who have recently passed away. If you know someone, take a moment to think about them. But we also pray for those who we don't know, but the spirits know how to help them. Some of them don't not even realizing they have passed away. There's an opportunity for them to change their perception, assisted by the superior spirits to continue on their journey. We now take a moment to use our imagination and to picture in a frame of our mind somebody that you might know. It could be somebody from your house, from your workplace, from your school. It could be a loved one, and why not someone you have difficulty dealing with? Just take a moment to imagine them in your mind, receiving these blessings from above, and having faith that these fluids, this irradiation is changing from sad, they're becoming happier, from sick, they're becoming healthier, from lonely, they're becoming one with us and with Jesus. Believing that the superior spirits are working with them to make that become a reality. Now I take a moment to pray for all of those who could not be here with us in their presence physically, wishing them all well. We also pray for our homes. It could be our homes here in New Zealand or to our families, wherever they may be. And lastly but not least, we thank the superior spirits for being here, applying in this environment the fluids that we are receiving in this very moment, harmonizing our minds, our bodies, throughout their spirits, and also applying the fluids into the water that we're about to drink. And we feel very grateful for this moment. As we move into our final prayer, once again, praising God for all of the gifts that we receive on a daily basis, the sun that shines, the rain that falls and offers water, the trees that give us oxygen, the flowers that offer their beauty and their smell. Everything in nature is a gift for us. We also thank you for our health, our bodies, our intelligence, our families, and all the challenges that we go through in life. Great opportunities for us to practice our patience, our strength, and our faith. And with our hearts filled with gratitude and joy and harmony for receiving all these blessings, we take a final moment to thank you once more and to ask permission to finish another Allan Kardec Spiritus Group of New Zealand meeting on this Wednesday. Thank you so much. So be it. Until next time. Thank you everyone online, and next week we'll be back together with another study group. Take care.